live from Brussels and London. It's ZN Live. And today is episode 389. I'm Phil Weiss, your host, and I have a very special guest today, EU influencer and sustainability expert, Kaj Embrén, who has been active in communication over 34 years, working on a range of critical issues, which we're going to talk about. But he's also a communicator with 80,000 followers on X and a podcast with over 60,000 listeners. So welcome to the show. And maybe before we start talking about your specific channels and how you're getting your message across, tell us a little bit about how you came into sustainability and where you are today.
Well, I think if I look at behind and in my background, and I think I was a local politician in a suburb of Stockholm called Nacka, and where I found that it was important to be engaged and how to reach out to other people with important issues on sustainability. It was youth employment, and I think it was starting point for me. And I always, in all my life, been active in different types of organizations before I went into more professional skills and developed my thoughts in other type of organizations. So it's a long journey, and that was also one of my reason when I set up my podcast for 2 years from now, and to give stories from my life that on leaders that I have met and what can we learn from the time under these 35 years. And my platform mostly has been based in Sweden, but the last 12 years in London. And my working arena has been globally. So I have, even if I have been placed in Stockholm or in London, my working arena has been global. Many years in the US and also South America, so I have a wide experience of different types of cultures, and I'm trying to see how do we bring people together with different backgrounds and different cultures, and based on some key issues that are important for our planet. So and you need to address the issues differently depending on where you are, and also how you engage with people. And I try to have that in my mind when I plan, for example, my podcast, and to try to see how leadership can work out in different types of society, everything from the bottom up to the top down.
Right. No, very interesting. And I mean, your podcast is basically kind of a COVID baby. It looks like,
Yes.
end of COVID when you started this. It's also incredibly successful as a way of communicating. I mean, podcasts are actually extremely popular right now. They've been around for some time, but I think they came back very strong post-COVID. And I think they're just now seen as a mainstream way of communicating. So how has it been for the last 2 years? Where are you getting your content? What are the key stories that you're focused on? And where are your listeners? Where are they coming from?
Well, if we start with the last question of the listeners, I have listeners all over the world, even if some countries are more frequently. But I can see that the US and Europe are my frequently listeners, and but I think I count to 105 countries was on the list of listener on my podcast, and I think also that Spotify give me some analytics that my podcast was one of the most global program, reaching out to so many countries. It was a year ago. So it's the podcast is a complement to my social media activity. I found that it gives me time. Podcasts give a little bit more deeper into different sort of problems or solutions of the issues that I would like to talk about. And I always have a great network of people that I've been working with in my sort of 35 years of activism, if you say that, call it that. But I know at least I can select pretty much of good stories, and the podcast has been the way to do that. But it's also, as I always say when we talk about social media, it's you need to see the different types of tools that are connected to each other. Because I use Twitter, I use or X, or Facebook or Instagram, in combination of and LinkedIn. Of course, we have particularly LinkedIn has a more of a serious expertise and skills you can that you have been working in your working life many years, and you don't see the same type of identity in X or in even if you can know the people behind. But mostly the relationship between my podcast and Twitter or X is that I can address some topics from the stories and also remind people about how to go behind the scenes and see how you come to some short message in X has a story behind. And it's always a tricky thing to be short in a channel like Twitter or X, and you have to think about how you communicate that in a good way. But
No, I think it's very it's interesting, and I think we're seeing really that diversification of channels. It's not a single channel that you should focus on, but a mix of them. Now, as I was saying in the introduction, you have 80,000 followers on X, and I'm just curious about, first of all, how do you feel about the platform and the changes that we've seen in the last few years since the takeover of Elon Musk? Has it changed for you? Is it still effective? I see that you're posting quite regularly on the channel today. And how do you organize your multi-channel strategy? Because obviously you're saying you mentioned Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So do you have a plan? Do you have a system? How do you approach, what do you post when, and how do you focus your time on this?
first of all, I must say that I need to see the different types of channels, because I add the different channels to my message and see which of the channels can I reach out to some of my target groups. And I think you need to have that open-minded strategy, that you need to use different types of social media to reach out to a broader public that I would like to reach. And of course, I'm reflecting also, of course, on X, of how Elon Musk can sort of provoke my feelings, and but so far I think I would use it because I have a number of people that have followed me, and I think it's a good way for me to still reach out to them and give them my thoughts, and even if I don't agree with the owner of the platform. Um, I will not say that this will be the way forward for me forever. I reflect, and I looking into the discussion of alternative to X, but so far I haven't seen a reason for me to leave, and so that's why I'm still there. And for example, the latest I did a series of articles regarding the weather systems and adaptation and climate change science. And I Twitter and or X is offer now opportunity to publish articles, and that was pretty good for me, because I produced and I published 3 articles on these topics, looking into the climate science backgrounds, and also what's happened in US, and also looking into the question of how do we solve the problem of climate issues, or which way forward should we think with such a big threat to all of us. And X gave me an opportunity to publish 3 articles, full articles, and I got pretty much of a good response. And I think it was around, for me, good figures, about 25,000 impressions on the articles. And this is a new methodology that X has offer for me, and I couldn't succeed with that in other channels. So that was interesting. So it make me feel that I will still keep going on X and try to use the platform, but it doesn't mean that I'm not only there. So these articles have been written about the climate science and the weather systems all over the world, and I published that also in LinkedIn as articles. And then I did, of course, you need to think about videos and sort of do short message, try to summarize the main topics in the articles. So I use everything from YouTube to Facebook and Instagram to support the articles. So for me, it's like a puzzle. You have to look at your issues that you would like to address, and then see where do you place your message. And so we can my conclusion from my work on social media is that you need to have knowledge of all type of channels that you can use to reach out to your audience. So, and that's the guidelines I have been following all of my years in social media. And I was pretty early adapter, and I remember when the first time when I put up an email, and you remember that sort of telephone signal before you
Yeah.
get connected, and then you could send your email. But I've been there from the beginning, and I think on X I've been since 2009.
Okay. But so basically, because you mentioned X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, does that mean that you're not looking at the clones, Threads and Blue Sky, for example, or Mastodon? These are the other 3. Just curious, are they in your mix, or those ones are not?
Threads is in my mix, and I also have been using some. I have been trying to reach out also through TikTok,
Okay.
and for my videos, and pretty interesting. And but it's mostly a question of time, how much time you have to when you're
Exactly.
going out with you, because it's not something that you fix on some short minutes. It's also what I said. It's you have to think through where is your channel and where is your audience and where do you want what do you want to reach. Who are they? And so it is, as I said, put a puzzle of things in front of you that you decide. And Um, I think it's. I will try. I would like to try different types of social media and following. And I think that's important advice also, that you have to not keep yourself in the bubble. You have to open up that bubble to see what's going on the market, and communication always been important for me. Communication strategy, thinking behind, and see which are the tools that you need to use when you address some issues.
Right. And talking about the issues, obviously, you're very much focused on climate change, sustainability. You've had conversations on and off. And the question I want to ask you: how do you feel after the European election? And now we have the Commission in place, a Parliament. What do you think this is going to do to the Green Deal and to the focus that countries had on climate change? I mean, the Green parties have suffered a lot during the election. So it feels like climate change has dropped from the agenda. How do you feel? Are you concerned? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? And how do you see the conversation on climate change evolving?
Well, I've always been concerned about the development in politics, and as I have a background as a local politician, I've been through local, regional, or national level of politics, and one of my critics has been that we forgot the young generation's participation in politics, and my conclusion is that we should have a discussion about innovation in politics, to see how politics can change with time. And I think most of a lot of countries have problem with politics, and to attract young people's engagement. And they it's so, when you look at politics of today, they are establishment, and you have some sort of smaller groups and activists, but it's very bad recruitment of young people into the established politics party, and the political parties have to renew themselves to change with time. And we have many example on that, and see the problem here in the UK, or in Sweden, or in France, or in the US, and Eastern Europe, for Middle East, and you see problems with politics, and we don't have the leadership that's needed to solve many of our problems, and that's worried me very much. So we need I can say that the Greta generation of activists should be going into politics. I'm pretty scared about the development of the right wing's development in Europe, and the threats what I see against the Green Deal and the green issues position. But on the other hand, I see also sort of in the middle of a politics, people with there are would like to see make sense of the realities, and people on left to right, in the traditional meaning, they find each other when they look at the problem, and the need to find some sort of consensus. And I think the majority of the European Parliament will have that support for take the step forward for the Green Deal. But it's not something that I are calm and say that it will not be a problem. I think it will be a fight for the political parties to renew themselves, and to see how can they be more attractive to the younger generation, and establish a better bridge for the young people into politics, because you need to have leaders in the politics that can address the issues, and to drive the change that is needed.
Yeah,
And
and I think, sorry.
yeah, so but we are not there yet, but I'm pretty sure that the Green Deal will have a position in Europe with the collaboration between in the middle of politics, and I think it's a clear majority for that, and supporting also the Green Deal's work. And even if I say it will be delays in some of the discussion of laws and implementation of policies that the smaller parties can put up some obstacles for the established politicians to drive the change in, and what I'm a little bit worried about is that we, in the same time as this political struggle is going on, the real climate change so fast, and it's not in harmony with each other. The politics are not in harmony with the change of the reality of our planet, and that is an issue that worried me most, that we are too late and we do too little to meet the changes, and it will be harder and harder because we get a shorter time for change, and that also will be a difficult issue to address, this faster change that may happen. And we will see. And that's issues that I would like to address also in my podcast and in other part of my social media activities.
Yeah, and you posted recently actually about misinformation around climate change, which I think, there's a big topic, which is information, because you can't make decisions if you don't have the correct information. And you were posting about misinformation spreading from an article in The Guardian. And of course, you've just, in the UK, we've just seen the devastating impact of misinformation with the riots that took place last week, which were, I think, truly shocking. So what do you think is the trajectory of misinformation? How bad is it? And what can people do about it?
Oh, it's bad, but for me, always been critical, analyzing messages on social media, and I think here is one of the most important part for educational system, is that how you can analyze communication and social media, and you need to have that as an obligation in all levels of the school system. Because if you can't analyze and to discuss the role of communication in a society, you're missing the opportunity to educate people for meeting this type of threat, because it is a threat when you're not aware about the opportunities or how social media can really take you on a ride without critical analyze. And you need to really go deeper into this type of education in our school system, and you need to have it from the first year of schools and through all levels when you go up in the system. And the only way to handle this type of freedom that social media give you.
No, I think you're right. I think learning how to deal with information, how to analyze its source, how to be critical is one of the skills we really need. And talking about this now, we're going to move to our recommendations and suggest what people should read and write. So roll jingle. So what things should people be reading or listening to in order to better inform themselves on these critical topics? What are your recommendations?
Well, I will have a portion of traditional media in my recommendation, that you identify some newspaper that you would like to follow, and also maybe trustful journalists that have a knowledge and experience and been writing good articles from your point of view. I think that you built your communication based on relationship to some main media journalists that you can trust, and there's a lot of trust in this, and I think also that you have to be open and to see what's going on in social media, and to try to find where is the platforms that I think will bring knowledge into my issues. And
You had a podcast recommendation and an article for us.
yeah, I think it was that the podcast that can you take
It's
that issue again?
the green innovative finance. Yeah, we have it
Oh
on
yeah,
screen.
yeah, that's right. And that is one of the critical issue for our issues related to climate change, and to how to find finance solutions for local governments and cities. And they are a traditional thinker of how to use a budget, but you need to have private capital into the puzzle, and how to bring more or bring more finance capital into the public space of a local government, and how can we bring people together to find investment in transport, in energy, in social areas in the neighborhoods, to fight all this social problem we have. So what I would like to see is that we use our pension funds and also other green bonds development to add to the sources for the local government and cities work. And that's why I've been trying to bring people who have knowledge in these fields in the podcast, to show the stories that can really make a change for a local government. And that is also something I would like to see happen now in the coming time of the autumn, that we're going to have some webinars to bring some of the key players in the financing sector who can help local government to scale up their investment in necessary areas. So so that's the important part of the last podcast message. With I did it with ICLEI and Green Climate Bonds Initiative, and also the Communinvest in Sweden, which are players that can drive change.
Okay, and you had a series of articles to recommend as well?
Yeah, I did a series of navigating climate change together with Swiss Re, one of the biggest reinsurance companies on the market. And that was to bring the knowledge of science of climate change up to a new level of how do you deal with this type of weather change, of hurricanes, flooding, fires. Of course, you had an urgency in this type of issues, but you also had to see some places all around our planet have done things that is solve the problem, and even if they may have easier to solve the urgency if they have done something before. But I trying to show that how climate science can be a part of the discussion of solutions, and also bring the solution in. And I did that. The last article in this series was focusing on how do you bring finance capital into investment in areas with pension funds and green bonds, and how Sweden have been using that and long-term change for focus on climate issues, and how you in system thinking brings new people and sources together and demand or look at the leadership. How can you collaborate with different types of entities to make sources that will bring a new opportunity to find the solution in these particular issues? And I think the 3 articles showing that how you can work with science, but also how you can stimulate and inspire others to take action and to bring more sources to meet the challenges we have in the issues around climate change.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. My recommendation this week is a podcast called The Rest is History, which is actually similar to the I mentioned The Rest is Politics and The Rest is Politics US. This is about history. I think it's always interesting to look back to understand what the bigger picture is. So I would suggest that. They have a special series now on the French Revolution, but lots of different podcasts. So that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see each other in the EU Influencer event on the 20th of September, coming up in Kado in Brussels. It's going to be great. A lot of people have already signed up, so looking forward to that, and have a fantastic weekend. See you around.
Thank you very much.